way for me to lose. I'm the fastest, I'm the most scientific, I'm the most creative, I'm the most artistic, I have the prettiest footwork, the prettiest face. There'll never be another fighter like me, and I'm here to prove it by annihilating this man.
I am the greatest. This is the legend of Cassius Clay.
Hello, what is shaking, my fellow PD warriors? Welcome to the first ever edition of the My PD Peeps podcast. You've heard me say a million times before, this is a very unique disease where a simple medication is not going to work for everybody. They all follow different paths, different medications, different therapies. That's why the biggest thing for me that I have found that's been extremely helpful, getting out there, talking to your fellow PD warriors, seeing what works for them. It might not work for you, but it might. So it's important to get out there and advocate, talk to the other members of your PD family, and see what works. So these series of Q&A questions are going to be geared towards that, trying to alleviate symptoms for all of us. So now the very unique thing I have here is I never in a million years would have thought that the first ever My PD Peeps pod would feature a celebrity. I've gotten some kind words from her before. I know she checks out the page. We've spoken. I consider her part of the PD family. I definitely consider her a friend. I now just want to introduce the beautiful daughter of the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali, Miss Rasheda Ali. Hey, Rasheda, how you doing today?
Greetings, Tim.
Hello, my friend. How have you been?
First, I want to let you know that I'm in a very special place right now. I am standing in the ring of Fighters Heaven, which is my dad's training camp in Deer Lake, Pennsylvania, which is where he spent most of his time training in the 70s. So, and this was my part home too. So I spent a lot of time here when I was a toddler. Brings back great memories. So I just want to let you know this is extra special to me because we were standing in my dad's training camp at Fighters Heaven in Deer Lake, Pennsylvania. So I just want to let you know that means a lot to me.
That looks like such a cool place. Definitely a piece of history. But listen, before we get into the Parkinson's chit chat, I do have to say, I know I've told you this before, but I just want to say it on the pod. One of the most unique and most memorable experiences of my life, when my first little guy Ryan was born, I was very big into memorabilia and autograph shows. So we brought him to see your dad. And I got to tell you, the love that people showed for your dad was like nothing I've ever seen before. It was like meeting a god. It was truly amazing. You know, we got up to the line. We were probably like the 10th in line. And he literally stood up. It took him a minute because he was still struggling at that point. But he motioned, he wanted to hold my son. And to that point, I don't think very many people had held my son before. It was pretty much just me and my wife and family. And he took my son and he literally held him up like Mufasa in The Lion King and gave him a kiss on the forehead. It was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in my life. We have a picture, we have it blown up in the home. And to this day, it's probably my most favorite picture. So, you know, it's funny because even when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, it was kind of a way to show my strength. I wanted to get a tattoo, some spiritual tattoos. And that same son, Ryan, I have three boys, Ryan, Richie, and Robert, who are my best friends in the world and my Parkinson's support system. But we went that day and my son Richard got a tattoo that kind of mimicked what I had in my arm. But Ryan went on the table and he wasn't telling me what he was getting. And basically what he did as an homage to me and your dad, to be frank, was he put float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. So it's funny, you know, I knew at that early age when he held Brian up and kissed him on the forehead that things were going to come full circle and your dad would have some kind of meaning in his life. So it was really cool.
I see that you met my dad and he kissed your firstborn on the forehead, and tell you right now that my dad loved children so much. And I know that when he kissed your firstborn, I'm sure that he was delighted to be able to bring joy.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, like I said, you could tell by the glow in his eyes how happy he was to hold my son. And it was such a crazy moment that, like I said, we will absolutely never forget it. You know, just speaking of your dad, kind of turning a little bit to why we're here, which is Parkinson's. What everybody probably wants to know, because why we're here, is our struggles. What would you say is your dad's biggest struggle throughout, I don't want to say his boxing career, because obviously he wasn't struggling with Parkinson's at that point, but, you know, post-career, later on in life, what would you say his biggest struggles were?
My dad's biggest hurdle with Parkinson's disease was his inability to be able to drive. My dad loved driving, and so because of his tremors and his shuffle walk and his ability to move as fluently as he used to, driving was a challenge. And so my dad didn't really like that. Also brushing his teeth and doing small things like buttoning your shirt. He needed assistance toward the end. And so that was frustrating for my dad. But my dad was always very positive. He kept things upbeat.
I mean, listen, I could certainly sympathize with that. I mean, I'm not the greatest of all time. I'm not your dad, but I certainly think I've gone through some of the same things as far as the shuffling, the frozen gait. You know, it definitely could become tiresome at times and frustrating. You know, but listen, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here. You know, we're bringing some advocacy, but the biggest thing is if I could bring a laugh to somebody, if I could post a joke online on my Instagram account and people could communicate with one another via laughter. You know, I think that's the biggest thing. You know, just keeping your head on right and keeping a positive outlook.
He also had a great sense of humor, so he kind of made fun of the situation and he didn't take himself too seriously. So my advice to all those who are suffering from Parkinson's is that, you know, do the best you can, try to get as much assistance, but also have a great sense of humor because that will elongate your life living with Parkinson's, and that's what my dad did.
I mean, listen, I couldn't agree with you more. I actually watched some of your dad's clips and highlights because he certainly had a way with words and he was hysterical. He was known for that, for his on-camera persona, so to speak. You need to keep things positive, keep things light, because otherwise, you know, you're going to go nowhere fast. You're going to be in a corner. You know, no boxing pun intended, so to speak. But, you know, what would you say? You know, I don't know what age you were, so to speak, when your dad was kind of struggling towards the end. You know, what was your role as a caregiver? You know, what advice could you give to caregivers as far as, you know, what you know about it and what you would recommend as far as helping those who struggle with Parkinson's?
Not a full-time caregiver when my dad was here, but I was a care partner. Full-time caregivers requires a lot of commitment and sacrifice to their loved ones. So I do realize the huge sacrifice that these caregivers are giving to their loved ones. However, I will recommend that they please, I'm saying it 3 times because it's that important, reach out to your loved ones and people you trust to kind of lighten the load a little bit because it is a lot of responsibility. And so I would recommend care partners to try to help those caregivers because caregivers tend to be very possessive and sometimes they just want to do everything on their own. And advice to the caregiver who's like that, please, you know, delegate responsibilities to your loved ones, the people that you love and that you trust, so that you can kind of get some rest time, so that you can build your immune system, so that you can enjoy your quality of life also while you're taking care of your loved ones. So please make sure you do that because your immune system is important in order for you both to be able to thrive together.
I would say that is actually great advice. Want to get that out there to the general public. I mean, it's very important, not even so much for the patients, but again, the caregivers too, because sometimes it's very difficult for the patient, the person struggling with the Parkinson's, to get their point across about how they're feeling to the caregiver. So any advice we can give caregivers is greatly appreciated. I mean, on that note, what does the diet of the greatest of all time look like? Not obviously not when he was boxing. I'm sure that was through the roof as far as being regimented. But as far as, you know, we hear a lot about your protein intake, your sugars should be limited, you know, the good, the bad. Talk to me about what does a guy like Muhammad Ali eat post-career battling Parkinson's? What does his diet look like?
So my dad was always very healthy in general. He always had chicken, no skin on it, vegetables, fruits. Now, Daddy did have a vice. He loved ice cream and he loved bread pudding. But that's every once in a while, he would indulge in some of those nice delicacies. Eating right is essential for anyone who, not just people who live with Parkinson's, but anyone who wants to live a healthy lifestyle, whether it's somebody who's diabetic or somebody who has a heart condition or somebody who has high blood pressure. So I would eat a common sense healthy diet, just really with lots of proteins, lots of vegetables, fruits, low-fat choices. Every once in a while, it's not a big deal to indulge in cake and things like that, maybe even ice cream like my dad did. But common sense, that is the key.
Okay, so I see you've been following up on me on the My PD page because sweets are definitely my vice, so to speak. I'm not an ice cream guy, but I definitely like to have a cookie or a donut here and then. So I certainly I get where he's coming from. You know, I could certainly get that. What about up here? You know, we all know that I'm a big proponent of keeping your mind right, living in the now, expressing your gratitude. What does a mindset look like? What do you think somebody's mind? I mean, listen, we're all not Muhammad Ali. I mean, I feel like he thought he could have beat anybody and probably could have. So he was a very positive person to begin with, and definitely did not lack our confidence. But talk to me about Parkinson's and getting your mind right, the importance of that.
Mental advice I would give is physical health is important, but also mental health is important. So joining a support group is very essential for people living with Parkinson's because you're in the trenches, so to speak, with people who are living the same life as you. So I recommend you join a very good support group near your home so that you guys can lean on each other for advice as a collective family. Also, if people need some mental therapy or people can see someone to help them deal with some of their issues, depression is one of the symptoms of Parkinson's, then please use those resources if you do have them. There are lots of services that are available for people with Parkinson's in most areas, so find where those support groups are so that you can award yourself and get control of your health and take control of your health in that respect.
I think that's perfectly said. I think in the year 2025, in the year of social media, obviously this age that we're living in and everything is at your fingertips online, there's no reason to not have some kind of support group that you're part of. Even if it's just like my page, the My PD Party page, or the millions of others that do what I do online, just making people laugh, give information, talk about the latest trials and drugs that are coming out. It's all great stuff. I mean, just touching upon that with support groups, the one thing I'll say too, I know we've spoken in the past, and I've told you I used to do I still do rock steady boxing actually, but I found that not only is it good for the physical side of it, but you're talking to people with like symptoms. I mean, you feel like you're part of something. You never know what conversations will lead to something that might help you. What can you tell me about coming from the daughter of the greatest boxer of all time? What do you think about rock steady boxing?
My thoughts on rock steady boxing is very positive. I had mentioned before that staying physically fit is very important to people living with Parkinson's, along with a healthy diet. I actually tried a rock steady boxing gym in Las Vegas, and then I spoke at an event that was a rock steady boxing event, which was here in Pennsylvania, and it was very rewarding to me. It was an interactive speaking engagement where I had Parkinsonians come up and do certain workouts. I will say that if you live near a rock steady boxing gym, please take full advantage of that. I think it's extremely effective, not just with Parkinsonians, but also their friends, their family, and also myself. I enjoyed it. I was really, my heart was beating. I got my cardio in, and I felt really afterwards really good about myself. And so again, we're talking about physical exercise and mental exercise is really good for your brain.
Now, a lot of people might not realize this because obviously your dad is unfortunately no longer with us and no longer boxing, but you actually are still very big in the boxing community because of your kids. And a lot of people might not know that. So fill us in a little bit about what's going on with you. What does that look like?
I would say I'm deeply involved in the boxing community because my two boys are boxers. My youngest son is a boxer, traditional boxing like his grandpa, and my oldest son is an MMA fighter. So I kind of help them out with their careers. I support them in their careers. I do as much as I can to try to help them so that they stay focused on their career, but more importantly, that they enjoy their lives. And also, they want to kind of give back to their community the way my dad did. So he used boxing as his platform to do great things for people. And I think my boys are going to do that. And I support them in their quest to be able to do great things in the community.
Well said. Like I said, rock steady boxing has really been a godsend for a lot of people. Like I said, as far as helping with physical symptoms and building a sense of community. I'm just getting off Parkinson's for a second here. I'm going to ask you kind of a unique question. I know people know your father in such an amazing way. He's an icon. I know my personal experiences with him, like we just said about him kissing my son and me sharing some time with my kids at a tattoo parlor, getting tattoos about Parkinson's and fighting it and fly like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Talk to me about what one of your greatest memories of your dad is? Because a lot, it's not often we get a chance to ask the daughter of Muhammad Ali, some personal stuff. So what is one of your best memories of him?
My favorite memory of my dad is very clear. We would visit my dad when he moved to California. My dad lived in Hancock Park, and so all of his kids would gravitate to Hancock Park, and we would spend the summer together. And so one time my dad, and this is before he wasn't able to drive anymore, but he loved his Corniche Rolls Royce. It was brown and it was a convertible. And he piled all of us up in the car, and we drove down Wilshire Boulevard, which is the main boulevard in Hollywood, in Beverly Hills. And he was just so pleased to be with his kids, to show us off. I believe we just drove to like 7-Eleven or something, but he was just so excited that we were all together. And it was a great memory of mine to be with my dad and also my siblings and share that special moment together, because at that time we didn't see my dad every day, so we spent the summers together, and that meant a lot to be able to spend that time together.
That is so cool. I could even visualize that in my mind. Talk to me about, and this is kind of a unique question. Obviously with Parkinson's, it's depressing. You can go into deep depression. Sometimes it's tough to get out of bed in the morning to find that motivation. If Muhammad Ali, your dad, the greatest of all time, who beat up everybody, even beat up Parkinson's, was sitting in front of me, what kind of advice would he be giving me right now?
It would be very simple. My dad would say, you are not alone in this battle. You have friends and family who love you and who support you. And if you don't have a supportive family, because that does happen, you have to find a supportive group of people who will embrace you regardless of what you're dealing with, who will lean on you when you're having those rough days, because it's not going to be easy, but you're not alone. And so take it all in stride and build up the courage to be able to enjoy your life as much as you can, because my dad enjoyed his life even with the difficulties. He suffered from Parkinson's for more than 30 years, but he tried to still do the things that he really enjoyed, like we would all go to the movies together, and he would go to the gym. He loved being in the gym. He loved driving, at least until he couldn't anymore. But he really enjoyed doing certain things. And so please don't give up the things that you enjoyed before. My dad always said to his fellow Parkinsonians, you are not alone in this battle. And you're not. I wish you the very best on your journey, and I pray you continue to inspire others living with Parkinson's disease. God bless.